Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of Operation Little Plymouth. My name is Eliel Rosa. I'm the founder and the president of the Nehemiah 220 Ministries here in Midland, Texas. My wife and I were talking yesterday with a wonderful friend of ours. She lives in Fort Myers in Florida. Fort Myers, as you can see in the news, has been the first or the major city affected or in the pathway of Hurricane Ian a couple of days ago. And she was talking to us yesterday for the first time after the hurricane, after the tragedy hit. She was talking about how devastated her area was by the hurricane, but at the same time she was talking with a smile on her face about how much the church, how much the community, not only the church, but especially the churches in that area, united to not only clean up, to rebuild, but especially to focus on people, to treat, to care, to take care of families and children and seniors and those who lost everything. So she was glad and she was joyfully giving us information and updating us on everything that is going on out there. Churches that have become, church parking lots that have become pretty much parking lot for RVs that people either donated or they could borrow from people that made available their RVs that were just parked there for people to live for a while, for people to have a safe place to be and a clean place to be living with their families until their homes can be somehow restored or until they can come back to where they belong, which is their own homes, right? And this is pretty much, I was telling her, the perfect example of what I have been talking about here on Operation Little Plymouth. The actions of the small community, the actions in the local place where we live. And again, with that in mind, I bring to your attention again this booklet that I just wrote. This is my personal one. I have been doing some notes here. The name of the booklet is The Impact of Civic Culture or Its Lack Thereof in the Local Level. So again, if you wanted to order a copy of this booklet, please take a look at the description of this video down here, and you can send me an email. The email is right there, and I'm going to deliver to you a copy of that free of charge. Again, if you wanted to participate and send us a donation for the advancements of the activities of the ministry, you're more than welcome to do so. We're glad and grateful for your contribution, but this is a ministry that we do not charge for any of our activities, any of our classes, any of our materials, any of our forums, and this is what we decided to do 5 years ago, or almost 5 years ago, when we launched the ministry. So with that in mind today, and with everything that my beautiful friend from Florida told us yesterday about what's going on in Florida in this reconstruction process, I would like to bring your attention to a subject matter that I brought to my KWEL radio program the other day on a book that I read a couple of months, actually almost a year ago. The book is called On Tyranny. The author of the book is Timothy Snyder. And I'm going to also leave the description of the information on the book here on the description of this video, so you can also have the possibility of getting a copy and reading for yourself. But I'm going to bring to you his lessons, or the lessons that he as a historian brought from the 20th century and from those people who lived under tyranny, under totalitarianism in the 20th century, last century. So I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to bring some of the topics, some of the lessons that I believe are not only very critical for us today, but so timely. Look at what is going around. Look at what is going on in the nation today, in America, especially in these two years after a new administration is taking over or took over the administration of the country, and you don't need to go to Venezuela or to Iran or to any totalitarian regime country today to see how it looks like. It is in our face. It is not hidden anymore. It is very explicit. So these lessons are very critical, very crucial for all of us to engage and to learn from, so we do not commit the same mistakes, so we can get ready in advance and somehow to spare ourselves and our families and our closer circle of friends from any painful that could be avoided, right? So here it is. Or here they are, some of the lessons from the 28th century on tyranny. Number one, do not obey in advance. Most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. You see how this happened in the past 2 years in the so-called pandemic, right? People were crying out. They were begging the authorities to impose mandates, to impose lockdowns. And he is saying, please don't do that. In times like these, in times of emergencies, in times when people say, well, this is an emergency and we need to do something, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want and then offer themselves without even being asked. A citizen who complies in this way is telling the ones in power that whatever they want to do, they will submit. So lesson number one from tyranny or totalitarianism on the 20th century, in the 20th century, last century, do not obey in advance. Number two, defend institutions. It is institutions, the author says, that helps us or that help us to preserve decency. They need our help as well. Do not speak of our institutions, quote unquote, unless you make them yours by acting on their behalf. Institutions do not protect themselves, so pick an institution you care about and boldly and publicly stand by it. We don't have only institutions of government in the local level. We have ministries. We have churches, we have charities, we have third parties, we have so many institutions in our local level that we should, according to what the lesson from the 20th century says, we should stand for and we should defend and we should call them ours. Another lesson from tyranny in the 20th century, be reflective if you must be armed. If you carry a weapon in public service, the author says, God bless and keep you. But know that a great deal of evils in the past were perpetrated by official policemen and soldiers. Be ready to resist them. So we know that at some point, totalitarianism regimes and authoritarian regimes will seize the power, will seize law enforcement, will siege and will take over law enforcement and will seek the power of law enforcement on the people. We're seeing this going on in Iran right now. We saw and continue to see this in Venezuela right now and in other countries in Africa. This is going on. South Africa. This is going on in South Africa right now. So this is a pretty powerful reminder for those of us who understand and believe in the power of the Second Amendment, that there comes a time when people with guns, meaning law enforcement, will come after those who have guns. And maybe, as he says, the time will come when you have to defend yourself against law enforcement with guns. Another lesson from the 20th century, stand out. Someone has to, he says. It is easy to follow along It can feel strange to do or say something different in times like those. But without that unease, there is no freedom. Remember Rosa Parks. The moment you set an example, the spell of the status quo is broken, and others will follow. Remember so many of our heroes. Not only Rosa Parks, remember Martin Luther King. Remember all of those who somehow stood out against the tyrannical mindset of the masses, of the elites, and they wrote their own history, right? Another lesson from the 20th century: believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power because there is no basis upon which to do so. If nothing is true, then all is spectacle. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding light. This is so truth. Stand up for truth. Another lesson from the 20th century: investigate. Figure things out for yourself. Spend more time with long articles. Subsidize investigative journalism by subscribing to print media. Realize that some of what is on the internet is there to harm you. Learn about sites that investigate propaganda campaigns, some of which come from abroad. Take responsibility for what you communicate to others. So this is about your communication. Pay attention to what you are spreading or sharing to others, because you need to dig for the truth first. Another lesson from the 20th century and the tyranny and the totalitarianism that we saw in the 20th century: make eye contact and small talk. Especially in the local level, this is so powerful and so needed. This is not just polite. It is part of being a citizen and a responsible member of society. It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and whom you should not trust at all. If we enter a culture of denunciation, people snitching on each other, you will want to know the psychological framework of those around you in your daily life. And I was talking on the radio yesterday about that 17, now 18-year-old boy here in Dallas, so close to us, that allowed the FBI to wiretap him, and he recorded his father for a couple of days. And then his father was arrested, and now he's going to be in jail for 7.5 years because one son decided to do that, to snitch on his own father. So this culture, this isolated case may turn into a culture of denunciation. And he says, the author of the book says, On Tyranny, says, be aware of that, beware of that. Another one, not bringing numbers here. Another lesson from the 20th century: practical corporeal politics. Power, totalitarianism, authoritarianism, tyranny wants your body softening in your chair and your emotions dissipating on the screen. Get outside. Put your body in unfamiliar places with unfamiliar people. Make new friends and march with those friends. By the way, here in Midland, on November the 7th, we are organizing and putting together a march against communism. More news and more details soon to be released on my radio show and also here on this podcast. So come and march with us. Another lesson from the 20th century on tyranny: establish a private life. Nastier rulers will use what they know about you to push you around. Scrub your computers of malware. Remember that email is skywriting. Consider using alternative forms of the internet, or simply use the internet less. Have personal exchanges in person. For the same reason, resolve any legal trouble. And this is a decision that I made for myself last year after January 6th, and I am still very reluctant, very hesitant in bringing back my social media life. I really don't want to do that. Perhaps I will have to because of these shows and because of the message that I have to bring out. But I am very reluctant in doing this so far because, especially because of the radio show, it gives me a voice that I did not have before. So, I mean, this is very personal to me, but you will have to make your own decision. Another lesson from tyranny in the 20th century: contribute to good causes. Be active in organizations, political or not, that express your own point of view and view of life. Pick one or two local charities or ministries and set up auto pay. I always quote Watch and Pray, Pastor Gatana's ministry here in Midland, and I also bring to the table when I talk about this, Pastor Bob Fu's China Aid. So those are two ministries, local ministries. There are hundreds out there that you should, as he says, not only pick, defend, but also put your contribution on auto pay. Embrace them, stand with them, because by doing that, you are engaging in the fight, in their fight, not only in the local level, but beyond. Another lesson from the 20th century on tyranny: listen for dangerous words. Be alert to the use of the words extremism, terrorism. Be alive to the fatal relations or fatal notions of quote-unquote emergency and exception. Be angry about the treacherous use of patriotic vocabulary. People that want to dominate over you, control you, tyrannize over you, they usually, in times like we're living right now, come at you with using patriotic words, like it's going on right now in the January 6th committee in D.C. They're using patriotic words to describe unpatriotic actions. So be aware of that. Second to last, be a patriot. Set a good example of what America means for the generations to come. Write your name in history by doing that. And the last lesson from the 20th century on tyranny: be as courageous as you can. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die under tyranny. Guys, we are living under socialism right now. I want you to not believe me, but believe your eyes. It is hard to see that. Actually, it's hard to absorb that. It's hard to elaborate on that. It's not hard at all to see. It's right on our faces every day. So my suggestion, my recommendation, if I may, to all of you is be aware of that. Know that. Because you are not going to be able in 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 years to say, I was not admonished, I was not advised, I didn't know that. It's all around you right now. It's painful to recognize, it's painful to admit that America has been living under the dictatorial regime and processes of socialism, but this is where we are right now. So stand up for yourself, stand up for your family, stand up for God and your church, stand up for truth above all. And tomorrow we will be back with episode 4 of the Operation Little Plymouth. May the Lord bless you all, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.